get through it, hopefully.
Hey, sir, the recorder is going.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Great to have everyone on here. This is the fourth quarter meeting of the Interstate Commission for EMS Personnel Practice. It's October 16th, 2024. And I will go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we can start with roll call. I will call on our Secretary, Commissioner House.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Let's start off. Alabama, Commissioner Gray. Saw Commissioner Bateman from Colorado.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Huss from Delaware. Commissioner Johnson, Georgia. Commissioner Denny from Idaho. I believe Commissioner Denny is excused, correct?
Correct.
All right.
He had a last-minute budget meeting that went over.
Got it. Commissioner Kinney, you are present.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Loon, you are also present. Commissioner House is present. Commissioner Bailey, I believe I saw you. Thank you. Commissioner Wyndham from Mississippi. Commissioner Miller from Missouri. Commissioner Wilson from Nebraska. Commissioner Sullivan from Nevada.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Price from North Dakota. Commissioner Hockmeyer from Oklahoma. Commissioner Martin from Pennsylvania. Commissioner Stewart from South Carolina. Commissioner Burrows, South Dakota.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward, Tennessee. Commissioner Schmieder from Texas.
Yeah.
Commissioner Herrera from Utah.
Present.
Commissioner Crittenden from Virginia.
Present.
Commissioner Weller from West Virginia. Commissioner Kaler from Wyoming.
Present.
Mr. Chair, I am showing us too short of a quorum.
I see Commissioner Hockmeyer was just entered, so I don't know that we had him on the initial list.
That would bring us one
Sorry,
short.
I was having a little trouble getting logged in here.
No problem.
I have us right at 12, so 12 of 24.
Okay. Remember if we need the +1 or if we can split it. Council, any ideas?
If you're short of a quorum, then you can have an informational meeting, but can't transact any business.
And I think the question was, is the quorum is split in the middle or is it +1? Because we have 12
I'm sorry.
of 24. Yeah.
Gonna have to take a quick look at that.
Yeah.
Stand by.
You can check. That was my problem. I didn't look. I usually review before the meeting, or maybe we'll get someone on here.
Mr. Chair, we do have two special presentations that would not be part of official business per se. So maybe we transition to those and then we'll maybe get a quorum after the two special presentations.
I think that seems reasonable. So we will go ahead. Our special presentations today. We thank Donnie for arranging, and I'll turn him over for quick introductions of them.
Yeah, thank you so much. So our very first one is a face that's known to many. Dan Burke. Dan transitioned, former state EMS director and a colleague. He's now with the Center for Patient Safety. And Dan's going to provide us a introduction to patient safety organizations and EMS. And one of the reasons I invited Dan to speak with us is that part of our legislation and part of our imperative is to actually increase patient safety. So that's actually one of our legal deliverables. And so Dan's going to talk to us about how patient safety organizations can help increase patient safety. So Dan, let me stop sharing. You'll have screen share capability, and I turn this over to you.
Awesome, Donnie. Can you guys see my screen okay, Donnie?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, commissioners. Appreciate it. So my name is Dan Burke. I am the EMS Safety Director for the Center for Patient Safety. I know many of you from my time as the State Director in Washington, D.C. I am a paramedic. I practice primarily in Maryland, some in Pennsylvania, and now in Washington, D.C. So just for disclosure purposes, I am attending this meeting as an employee of Center for Patient Safety, and I'm talking about Center for Patient Safety a bit in this presentation. So just the Center for Patient Safety real quick. We are a nonprofit 501c3 patient safety organization with the mission of reducing preventable harm. We've been in business since 2005. We're the only PSO in the country that focuses on EMS, and because we are a nonprofit, we are big in the advocacy business. So we have an emphasis on advocating for harm reduction and just culture in the nation's EMS system. So what I want to go over today is essentially a very awareness level of what is patient safety, what's the history behind how we got where we are, and then understanding a little bit about what patient safety organizations do and how EMS organizations, agencies, and state EMS offices can start to do patient safety work and perhaps connect with a patient safety organization. So patient safety was a largely ignored topic for centuries in the practice of medicine. Everyone had heard of quality as the science of healthcare quality progressed from the 1950s in through the 1990s, but no one had talked about what does safety mean, what is harm. And that was really until the mid-90s when a number of publications came out saying, hey, we think there's some data behind harm here. There's harm being done by the medical system. And then in 1999, the document To Err is Human was published by the National Academy of Medicine. And that document basically said, we believe that there's data that suggests that up to 100,000 people in the United States die due to medical error in our healthcare system. That number is a number that's larger than motor vehicle collisions and shootings combined, right? And we know in the EMS system, we were created to protect our nation's highways, right? As part, that's why our federal office is inside the Department of Transportation. We were found to protect the nation's highways from all these motor vehicle collisions and people being injured on the highways, and we've expanded to do many other things, but the data shows that more people are being injured due to medical harm in our countries than are actually dying on the highways and shootings combined. So this paper called for a systems approach to address this issue and to reduce the potential for risk and for medical harm. So it also sort of said, hey, this is patient safety and this is what we think it's about. And the definition the World Health Organization provides is it's the absence of preventable harm to a patient and reduction of risk of unnecessary harm associated with healthcare to an acceptable minimum, right? And recently the federal government has said the acceptable minimum is no harm. So that it's certainly a very lovely goal to have. We're not at no harm yet, but we want to get there. So patient safety and the science of patient safety focuses on healthcare as a system and a culture. And it acknowledges that it's not necessarily an individual that makes a decision that causes harm or injury, but it's systems with root causes that enable an individual or a healthcare process to cause harm. It also focuses on limiting the blame. So that's not necessarily, Dr. Smith caused this problem. It's the system that Dr. Smith worked in had a risk that resulted in a patient experiencing harm. The other important thing that it acknowledges is that though quality and quality assurance and improvement are part of the patient safety process, those are outcome driven, and they're not necessarily the entire safety process. They're just a slice of it. So in response to this and a number of other papers published right around the turn of the 21st century, the federal government took a number of actions, including creating and passing the Patient Safety and Quality Improvement Act of 2005. Now, this, along with a number of other federal laws, created a number of structures inside HHS to look at patient safety, to look at healthcare quality and how we monitor these things at a federal level, but also how individual health systems and healthcare providers act and grow and learn. And one of the most important things that it did was it created patient safety organizations. So what is a patient safety organization? It is an independent organization that is approved and listed by the federal government to do patient safety work. And they collect data from their member participants, they analyze it, and they develop reports and opportunities for collaborative learning amongst their members. So who participates in these? Well, any licensed healthcare provider can participate, right? Hospitals, surgery centers, clinics, correctional medicine, and EMS agencies all sort of fall into that bucket, right? Anyone who has a state license to provide healthcare can be a member of a federally registered PSO. And then what PSOs collect is that patient safety stuff, as I call it, right? It's anything that could lead to or potentially involved in a patient safety or a possible risk event. That's near misses, that's quality assurance investigations, potential unsafe conditions. PSOs collect that information. So why is a healthcare organization a member of a PSO? Well, the PSO, as I mentioned, they aggregate member data. So when a organization submits a patient safety event or a risk or a near miss to a PSO, it's their job to collect that in a database, put all of their members' data together, and then release findings to have productive conversations about patient safety, right? We all know that, even the busiest EMS systems in the country aren't going to see every type of patient in every possible scenario every day or even every year. But when you put all of those together, right, whether it's a hospital systems together or EMS systems together or surgery centers together, when you put together larger chunks of healthcare providers, you're able to get a really good data set that says, hey, there's some trending here. There's things we can learn from these safety events that are happening amongst our peers. The other great thing that you can do inside of the PSO is the members of that PSO can work together on safety and risk and harm reduction projects. The other great part about a PSO is that they provide services to their members. They become a non-punitive partner in the development of an organization's patient safety evaluation system, or PSES. So basically, what that does is that PSO can say, hey, here's how the best practices have worked. How can we bring those things into your organization and help you understand your safety better? And then the final reason, and the reason that many of our members join, is under that federal law, being an active participant and a member of a PSO provides a number of federal protections for patient safety work product. So what is patient safety work product? Well, it's the stuff that you do inside of your patient safety evaluation system or your patient safety process to analyze your safety or potential harm events, right? So when you're collecting patient safety data and you're submitting it to the PSO, those things are actually protected from disclosure. So that's things like analysis of quality assurance data, testimonials or transcripts of interviews of providers, things of that nature. Those become patient safety work product as you investigate a safety event, and they become protected. Now, the key here is these things occur inside of your patient safety evaluation system, and they're intended to create this shell of privacy around your patient safety work product so that you can have an improved culture of safety inside your organization. This was the intent of the federal law, was to create an opportunity where healthcare organizations can have collaborative discussions with their clinicians, and they can say, hey, here's the root cause of these problems. We were able to learn about these things without having to essentially post it on LinkedIn, right? Having to share it to the world or get FOIA, right? The key here is the federal protections actually prevent any of your patient safety work product from being disclosed in criminal or civil cases, from subpoenas. They prevent discovery and even protect from sunshine and FOIA disclosures, right? And we all know that we've gotten those requests for information through FOIA at our EMS agencies. And if it's something that's fallen into the patient safety work product realm, and then you've actually done patient safety work on it, you can respond and say, nope, that's patient safety data. It's protected under the federal law. We're not going to share it. And again, the key here is it's designed for collaboration, and it's designed to improve your culture inside your organization and encourage your providers, your clinicians to be honest and have really candid conversations and discussion about what you can do better to reduce harm to your patients. So what can you protect? It's a lot of things, right? It's event reviews, trending of data, investigation information. So that's those transcripts, emails, things of that nature. Incident reports inside of your organization. When you're looking at quality trending, medical director reviews, right? If you have a medical director who meets with an EMS clinician to discuss a case or a trend, those things can be protected inside of your PSO. And really, I'm a paramedic. I like simple terms, so this is the way I like to look at this. It's a protection sandwich, right? So there is an event that happens. Let's say there's a medication error on a call. The patient, of course, has a right to have access to their patient care record, so that is not protected. Whatever's documented there is their right to access it. But then when your provider says, hey, I had a medication error, I'm self-reporting, or it comes up in QA or whatever it is, that's where your patient safety process starts. From that point forward, that information is part of what's called your deliberation and analysis of your safety event. That becomes shielded by those federal protections, which means you can do those investigations. You can bring that provider in and have them meet with your medical director. Your safety committee can meet and talk about, maybe these vials look very similar and we should think about how we label them or how we store them. And all of those things can be protected inside that conversation. So that way, when someone who's interested in publishing this in the newspaper comes and FOIAs you about it, you can say, no, I don't want to share that. It's protected under federal government. We'll give you our outcome. So the last layer of that sandwich, the top piece of rye on the Reuben sandwich, is your outcomes. That is not protected. So essentially, what you have is a not protected patient record that's protected by HIPAA, but the patient has a right to have it. You have your investigation process, which is totally shrouded by the PSO protections, and then your outcome, whatever you do about what you investigated, whatever that's, if it's a policy change, if it's increasing your training in an area, if it's a protocol change, that becomes public information. But the deliberation process that you took to get there is not. So the key here is that hospitals and what I call non-EMS healthcare have figured this out. Many hospital systems in the country are part of PSOs. In fact, some of the larger ones actually have their own patient safety organizations that they've created as separate nonprofits or separate for-profit organizations inside their structure to protect this information so they can have these. They also have figured out that they need to have risk management and safety divisions, right? Every hospital system you go to is going to have a patient safety evaluation system. They're going to have folks that work on this. Unfortunately, in EMS, we haven't really done this. So why should EMS do patient safety work inside of a PSO? Well, first of all, we're already doing a big chunk of it, which is QA/QI, right? If you're doing CQI, which every agency should and probably is doing, if you're doing CQI, you're already doing a big piece of it, which is collecting data, trying to learn from the work that you're doing. But the EMS agencies need to take that next step. The key here is when you create this federal protection and do PSO participation, you protect that culture in your organization. You're able to tell your clinicians, hey, we're doing this for you. We want you to help us grow. And we want you to help us drive positive outcomes and reduce harm. So you can actually grow your just culture environment by creating those protections and creating a clinician-friendly environment for your team. And then, most importantly, I think, is that you get to share that data with the other members of the PSO. For example, in our PSO, we have about 300 EMS members across the country. And we can share information, de-identified, of course, information across the country, across our members, and say, hey, you know, this agency in South Carolina has a trend that they think everybody should know about. Or this agency in Missouri found that this brand of IV catheters had a bunch of, you know, catheter shears, whatever it may be. We can share that information amongst our members, and that's the big benefit of participating in an EMS focused PSO. The other big thing, and this is, I think, important to this group, is that the PSO structure provides an opportunity and a protected umbrella for group work. So where we see this a lot is multiple agencies that share a medical director, right? So if there's a county medical director and multiple agencies in a county, or a regional medical director and multiple agencies in a region, they can all operate under one PSO and share information with each other. The other really big one is specialty care teams, right? So when we talk about specialty systems of care, such as trauma, stroke, STEMI, peds, sepsis, those can actually be protected as part of your PSO as well when you have those conversations about patients that transitioned from the pre-hospital environment into the hospital and interacted with those two different teams. You can set your PSO up through MOUs with the PSO of the hospital to have those conversations under those PSO protections as well. And then finally, what I think is really, really valuable is regional or state PSO, state level PSO structures. For example, at the Center for Patient Safety, we provide PSO services for every EMS agency in the state of Missouri, which is our home state. And it's awesome because those organizations, one, they get the service using taxpayer funded dollars, which is very, very generous of the state. But more importantly, they get the opportunity to have Missouri-based data and Missouri-based conversations and Missouri-based harm reduction strategies, because they're working together as a state element. And it works really, really well. We're looking to grow how we do that in the future and increase collaboration, but it's just a window into where the opportunity can be for a state to do this kind of work. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Donnie. If there's any questions, happy to take them. And of course, my email is here, but I can share that as well later on as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, I think as we look at how the compact can deliver on the legislative requirement for increasing patient safety, this is something that we should look at. Dan, I would like to, if it's okay with you, share out your presentation with the commissioners and encourage them to get in contact with you to see how collaboration could be in the future.
Absolutely, Donnie. I will send you my presentation, and I thank you all for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Any questions that anyone has for Dan? Thank you, Dan. Always good to see you. Appreciate the presentation. Any
Good
questions?
to see you, Craig.
Okay, before we move on to the next speaker, I was communicating with Secretary House, and I noticed that we have Anthony Martin on as well. So we now have a quorum. So we will move from the information only into the actual regular meeting. But we will go ahead and continue with the presentations, and then I will catch us back up. So back to you, Donnie.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to introduce Peter Taylor. And Peter, if I didn't pronounce your last name right, my apologies.
Peter's good.
Peter's with Waymo, and we had a conversation around autonomous vehicles and EMS. Not to steal any of his thunder, but we have cities around the nation now that have fully autonomous, meaning no driver in the vehicle. And there are times when there's EMS interactions with that. And so Peter's with a dedicated team at Waymo that is helping to ensure that first responders, fire, police, EMS have some connectivity and awareness of what's going on. So I'm not going to take any more thunder, but Peter, thanks for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Director Woodyard. I really appreciate you reaching out, and thanks to everybody here for what you do and for carrying on the work. I come to you after 30 years with the Austin Fire Department, where I was an EMT and served on a truck company for the majority of my career, moved into battalion level incident command, and then finished up as division chief over logistics, looking over our fire stations and our vehicles. So like Director Woodyard said, this is really new territory, and my conversation today is designed just to be that. I really don't have a set presentation. I do have a short video if we have time for it, but if not, the goal is just to introduce you to this landscape and how is it's expanding exponentially across the nation. So I'm part of the Waymo First Responder Ambassador team. And I wanted to ask real quick, has anybody taken a Waymo? Has anybody had any experience? If you want to unmute, please do. Or has anybody run a call with an autonomous vehicle involved? Okay. Don't see any hands, so we'll keep going. My team is specifically set up to interact with fire, police, and EMS and to make sure that your members are confident and comfortable working around the Waymo vehicle. This model has been set up by the Waymo team and is proving successful in our current 4 cities, which is San Francisco, Phoenix, LA, Austin, Texas, and I'm here in Atlanta today, where I'm going to be meeting with the Atlanta Police Department and Atlanta Fire Department. I'm going to kind of take a left turn real quick and start with a story. When I started in the fire service over 30 years ago, there was no such thing as a smartphone. They didn't exist. And if you had said, hey man, you're going to have a computer in your pocket 24/7 that's going to have more computing power than the Apollo mission, we probably would all laugh. I see this technology as very similar to that. If you are a brand new medic stepping on the apparatus floor today, this technology is going to be with you for the next 30 years. So I think it's super important that we get it right. I think it's important that we establish these collaborations. And this introduction is just that. I mentioned the cities that we're currently in. There's a handful of other operators. You might have heard their names that are in different cities. We are the only one that has a first responder ambassador team. And again, we feel that it's really important to invest in our first responders because they're going to be really at the nexus of interaction with these vehicles, whether it's somebody passing out in the back seat, whether it's the vehicle actually being involved in a collision, or if it's the vehicle impeding on your incident scene. And we want you to feel confident and comfortable in each one of those situations. Autonomous vehicle technology, this level of autonomous vehicle technology started in about 2004, 2005, and 2007 with the DARPA challenges. And then Waymo, Google actually picked it up as the autonomous ride hailing company, Google self-driving car project. And that was in 2009. And then in 2016, we transitioned officially to Waymo. We're in multiple cities, as I mentioned. We have over 15 years of experience and over 20 million autonomous miles driven. And what we're seeing out of those, that data is that these miles driven are extremely safe. Significant reduction in airbag deployments, significant reduction in injuries. And the hope is that autonomous vehicles will be an improvement to public health. So again, that's why we have this relationship here. Autonomous vehicles are coming in several different packages. Over-the-road trucking, a big corridor for that is Dallas to Atlanta. We do have robo-taxis. They're in a variety of different cities. Phoenix is our biggest market. We have over 250 cars in the Phoenix area. Delivery bots are a thing. You might see those with your grocery stores. And then aviation is an up-and-coming area. Not too much in marine, but I'm sure that's coming as well. Our first responder team now has 7 members. We are all executive level police and fire, and we have over 210 collective years of public safety experience. Big question is, what's next? Obviously, there's going to be more deployments, more cities. We're going to start growing in Atlanta. We're looking at Florida. We're looking at New York State. We're looking at nation's capital. And what we're seeing is states developing AV task forces. In the state of Texas, the TEACS organization has an AV summit. We're seeing AV committees being formed at the national level. And again, we want this to be a successful and collaborative partnership with our EMS medics. Do we have any questions? Donnie, did you want to go to video real
Sure.
quick?
Yeah, maybe show the video. And, I think the one comment I would say, and one of the reasons I invited Peter here also is as regulators, I'm sure this will come up as a point of regulation in the very near future. Not just how we interact, but I foresee that in the future there would be even a possibility that an autonomous ambulance will exist. They're being tested in Europe. And this is something that as leaders in EMS, we will have to understand, create positions on, and figure out how to regulate. So this is a foreshadow of what's to come, I think.
Another layer on that, Donnie, is the idea of low acuity care calls and being able to transport via autonomous vehicles for low acuity care calls, releasing ambulances for more important work.
Yep.
So let's see if I can share my screen.
So much emerging technology is just a show, so one can be forgiven for not being able to distinguish fact from fiction. Take this car, for example. Can it drive autonomously or not?
The short answer is absolutely.
That was Shweta Shrivastava, Senior Product Lead for Driving Behavior at Waymo.
What you're looking at is the Waymo driver in action. Adapted for a variety of vehicle platforms, it is the most advanced, fully autonomous driving technology in the world today.
What you notice pretty quickly is that these aren't normal vehicles. Take this Jaguar I-Pace, for example. It's been equipped with an elegant array of sensors and software, which allows it to move through the city on its own.
That's correct. The Waymo driver is a combination of custom design, hardware and software that is responsible for performing the entire act of driving.
That was James Philbin. He's an engineering lead on the perception team at Waymo. I asked him to break down the technology for us a bit more.
The Waymo driver handles the task of driving in 3 basic steps: sense, solve, and go. It's the way we describe the highly complex process of acquiring information, processing it, and moving through the world safely.
So, what goes into all that sensing?
The sensors that the Waymo driver uses are incredibly powerful, using a combination of LiDAR, cameras, and radar. It can see up to 3 football fields in any direction and can detect sirens from emergency vehicles, which allows the Waymo driver to visualize the world around it in milliseconds to a high degree of accuracy.
Okay, sense makes sense. But what do you do with all that data?
Good question. The system calculates the predicted future behavior for each relevant agent in the scene. Then, with a strong foundation derived from artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms, the Waymo driver crunches all that data and calculates a safe route, while responding in real time to the evolving traffic environment.
If I understand correctly, this means the Waymo driver continues to learn as it goes, is trained and tested on scenarios that it's never seen before, and can differentiate safe and comfortable driving behaviors from hazardous and uncomfortable ones.
Yes, well done.
Why, thank you. The final step in the Sense, Solve, Go methodology is perhaps the most straightforward. Go.
Once the Waymo driver has determined the path to take, our advanced motion control systems allow for smooth acceleration and braking on hilly streets, or managing bumper-to-bumper traffic with safe and natural driving movements.
So it's really here, right now in cities. Not smoke and mirrors, but true autonomous driving technology. Waymo is taking what was once futuristic sci-fi and making it nonfiction. And like all great technology, all that number crunching, all that data just fades into the background. And you realize the dream of riding in a fully autonomous vehicle to your favorite dinner spot isn't just a vision of the future. It's actually happening right now.
Are we back?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions to finish up? Hopefully we'll interact with some of you folks at the AV Summit in Texas and some other events. If anybody has any questions, please funnel them through Director Woodyard. I know he'll get them to me, and we look forward to continuing to collaborate. Thank you again for all you do.
Peter, before you jump off, this is Joe Smeeter from the state of Texas. Just out of curiosity, how does, and I'm supportive of this, I know it's new technology, it's where we're going. How does it recognize a siren from an ambulance, police car, fire truck, or something like that? I'm assuming there's some kind of built-in sensors or something like that, but it's just out of curiosity.
It is programmed to pick up sirens, the audible information from sirens. We've provided all of our cities siren data. We got with the vehicle manufacturers and the different siren manufacturers. Waymo went out and bought them and ran them and tested them and made sure we coded it correctly. The other thing that we do with the technological system that we have, we're able to see a black and white of a police car. We're able to see the red of a fire truck, the yellow of an ambulance if you're in Austin. So the combination of all of those things, the size, the shape, and the sound, will prompt the Waymo vehicle to pull over to the left or to the right. Typically, it can go to the left, but it'll pull over when it's safe to do so. So one of the things that we're seeing is that it might track for a block or two until it finds a safe place to pull over.
Great. Thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Sir, thank you for joining us. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a question or are we good?
Any further questions for Peter? Thank you, Peter. We appreciate that. That was a good presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
And as he noted, if you have follow-up questions, get them to Donnie and he will make that connection. Thank you for arranging that, Donnie. That was great background information on kind of the future. So moving on the agenda, the next step we have is moving back up. We have the quorum and we actually did gain additional as well. I saw that Jamie Gray was able to join us. Thank you. And anyone else that you noted, Secretary House, feel free to list them as present. I do get the privilege of introducing two commissioners that are both on, and I'll give them a quick heads up that if they wish to speak, I will give them the opportunity just to do a brief introduction after I go through and introduce them. But since our last session when we were in person, in conjunction with the NASIMSO annual meeting in Pittsburgh, we've added two commissioners, and one of them's from Oklahoma, and that is Dr. Wyatt Hockmeyer. And I did not know if you'd like to give an introduction.
Well, hey, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Wyatt Hockmeyer here in Oklahoma. I've been with our agency for about 5 months now, and so finally starting to get the feel of things. Prior to this, I was in the hospital world, so I was CEO of the hospital, and before that, I'd worked in dialysis, and so just experiencing different aspects of healthcare, but had a lot of
a lot of time and experience coordinating with EMS and working on our trauma certifications in our health system. And so being able to come in and put these pieces together in the big picture is really exciting. I'm happy to be part of the compact.
Thank you. We're glad to have you with your experience. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being on. Our second new member since the last meeting is from South Dakota, and she is on as well, and that would be Whitney Burrows. And I'll recognize her if she'd like to do an introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Excited to be here. I have been with the medical board in South Dakota for just about 2 years now. We had some legislation pass this last spring where now all of EMS is under our board. So they appointed me as the new commissioner. I was lucky enough last month to meet Donnie in person in Columbus, Ohio for the state director orientation. So that was really, that was nice to meet him in person, and I learned a lot and excited to be part of the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to both of you. And of course, thank you to all the commissioners that have made it on today. Next thing we have is adopt a business agenda. And is there any additions or corrections to the business agenda that has been posted? Okay. We will accept the agenda as posted previously, and we will move on. Public comments for matters not on the agenda. If you just want to make a brief comment, we do have some report outs later time for our partners. But if there's anyone on that would wish to make a comment for something we are not going to address on the agenda, please use the raise hand feature and I will recognize you. You will have 2 minutes to present and then address any questions based upon your comment. Okay, not seeing any. We will move on to, we've done the special presentations. We'll move on to reports and start off with the chair's report. First of all, I am excited to be here. I was doing a little bit of homework before we started. And when I looked at when we last had elections, when I was elected after we retained Donnie and he transitioned that role from chairperson, I was elected chairperson. Since that time, there have been 11 new commissioners. And since I initially became a commissioner in 2020, 4 more. So there are 15 of the 24 that have come in after me. And that's quite a bit of turnover that we've had. And I think it's positive, though, that people are engaged when we're getting the new appointees from their governors. They've been very involved, and we need to continue to have that involvement. You're going to hear from Donnie in a little more detail, but I commend, we set a goal that we wanted more advocacy and more education, make sure people understood the compact, what is it, how it impacts them on a daily level. And I feel like our executive director that we've vested in has gone out and done that, and we will hear the reports on what he is doing there. We also have work groups that are very active. And so the code of conduct, we're going to hear a little bit about that later on today. But that was a great work group that produced a great work product and appreciate all their work. But the data protection group also continues on as another work group. And then our primary committee, the bylaws committee, you'll hear from as well. But all of them, I try to sit in when I can. Extraordinary participation, great discussion, very good that we have people engaged. The final comments that I have, I don't want to paint just a rosy picture. I know we have our challenges, and I do want to acknowledge that one of them, that the executive committee, which meets every month, by the way, and you get notices. You are always welcome to attend, whether you're a public member or just, I shouldn't say just a commissioner, because the power's in the commissioners, but if you're a non-officer, you are certainly welcome to attend. And we get a lot of commissioners that do and get great input at the executive committee level. And so encourage people to participate in that. Because that is a great way to be engaged. But one of the discussions that we have has been on compliance and where are we with the compliance. And the executive committee expressed some concerns, and we have taken those, and it's a work in progress. But at the bottom of your book that you have, that Donnie has carefully prepared, you will see both summaries on where we are on compliance, but you will also, there's the summary being displayed, but you also see each state as a breakdown so that if they aren't in compliance, you can find out where they are. Are they on track? Are they frankly ignoring us as a couple of states? And so it's a useful tool. Where we have to go from here is what do we do to bring the 24 states into the fold? So we kind of had two missions, one to clean up where we currently are, but two, let's get over that 25 hump and hopefully add some new states coming up. And we hear a lot of positivity as Donnie updates us, and I believe we will add states as we go forward. That completes my report. I will recognize Commissioner Vandeloon, who is our treasurer, for the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Treasurer's reports as follows. The previous balance from Q2 of 2024 was $90,643.97. We had $40,522.43 in debits over the last quarter, and we received a $40,000 credit from the NREMT, making the pending balance of $90,121.54 as of 9/30 of 2024. I'll entertain any questions.
For the education of our newer commissioners, make sure everyone understands the National Registry is currently our sole source of where we take income. Okay, yes. Any further questions for our treasurer? Okay, the treasurer's report will stand as presented. We'll move on to recognize Donnie for his executive director's report.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and to the commissioners and the many guests that we have on today. I'll let the executive director's report kind of stand as submitted in the 115-page board book that we have. So, but I will give a few highlights. Really following the direction of the commission, we recognize that we have a continued education and awareness gap. So I've really been trying to prioritize education and awareness. Last week, we did an education session for government officials, predominantly state and federal officials. Even with the multiple hurricanes and wildfire disasters going on, we still had nearly 100 attendees. And so that is recorded for those who couldn't come. We had over 160 register for that event. And I'm happy to share that recording with any state or federal official that's out there. That included a special presentation from the Council of State Governments from the National Center of Interstate Compacts. And if I was to summarize that, and this is kind of talked about in an addendum to the committee book here, the commission book, and that is interstate compacts are truly the gold standard right now for professional licensure and for medical professions. We got in early with the nursing compact. It's been now 10 years that we've been having model legislation available for states to adopt, which is hard to believe. But currently today, there are 17 occupational and professional licensure compacts. That simply was not the case 10 years ago. And occupational licensure compacts are the absolute gold standard. And if you've been in one of my sessions, you will hear me say, we have a lot of news articles out there about EMS in crisis, EMS workforce, and the compact being the gold standard is absolutely key and important to that. But here's the other thing you hear me say. For our EMS colleagues, if you're in a state that's not part of the compact and your state is part of any of these other professional licensure compacts, you're being, in my words, disenfranchised. You're being disadvantaged from our colleagues in the other professions. And so we strongly believe that the EMS Compact is not only about the mobility of EMS personnel, which has been used frequently with hurricanes, especially over the past few weeks, but it's also about sharing data. It's about linking our licensure systems together. It's about unifying regulations around initial licensure. It's about addressing patient safety through the lens of not one state, but 24 states, and hopefully one day 50. So that's been the focus. I do have a fair amount of travel coming up. It's that busy time. And if there's something in your state that you would like me to be at, either virtual or in person, please reach out, and happy to do so. The only other thing that I would draw your attention to is we are continuing to make changes to the website to add resources there. All of our meetings are on YouTube, and very highly committed to transparency with that. And we did add a complaint section to our website so that we could better track complaints. And so if there's a agency or an individual with a complaint, we are able to get those in through the website. That allows us to better track that. So with that, Mr. Chair, I know we have a full agenda. I will turn it back to you. I'm happy to stand for any questions. And it's a delight to serve the commission.
Thank you for your service. Any questions for Donnie on his report? And I would note, Donnie, we have had a couple of submissions through that complaint process, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the idea is when someone has a concern about how they're being treated, maybe we can connect them with the state and determine their status. And so that's a helpful tool so we can address how often we are having challenges within the state. So. Next, we'll move up to Bylaws and Rules Committee. I'll recognize Commissioner Schmieder for the update there.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's still my pleasure, as with Donnie, to continue to serve. Chairman, as you know, I wrote up somewhat of a report. We could make that available to the whole commission, and then I'll just briefly summarize it to save some time here today. But the Bylaw Committee has been meeting on a regular basis, doing a lot of great work. Nothing to bring forward today for approval, but we are looking around some new definitions. We're cleaning up section 4, the privilege to practice, and adding some stuff in there. The coordinated database, where we're looking at who has access to what and writing some of those rules, and disclosure, what can be disclosed and what's not. As I said, we're not ready to go public yet. But as soon as we will, we'll have, like we did last time, we'll have a separate meeting where we just go over, try to answer any of the questions so we don't tie up a long commission meeting on that. But I just want to commend the committee meeting. We're meeting on a monthly basis and we're getting work done. So thank you for this opportunity. And that's all I have at this time. Sorry, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Commissioner Schmieder? I want to relay my thanks again to he and the committee. I usually sit in on all their meetings as I'm available, and they have great discussion, great input. I mean, sometimes it even comes down to word choice. You know, are we a practitioner, a clinician, things of that nature. And I think they take it very seriously. Again, those are open as well. So if you wish to observe those, or well, they'll let you participate as well. In that. So if you are interested, let Donnie or Commissioner Schmieder know. Moving on to our database administrator report, recognize Ray Mullers from National Registry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies for the slight delay there. I was slightly distracted. What is in front of you is the monthly report that I submit to the executive committee through Donnie. And really what it contains is on the left-hand side, you'll see the 24 states and a date of the last API connection for the states that are connected and the number of providers that are in the database, the NEMSKID database. Below that, you'll see some ongoing projects that the National Registry's IT team is trying to take on starting in this quarter of 2024. Hopefully, there's a couple that aren't on there. We hope to add two-factor authentication and some administrative functions to be able to signify whether someone is active or inactive, and to do some editing. Currently, it is pretty limited as to the admin functions. And then the next highest priority is the EMS ID as a primary identifier. You'll see on the top right those states that we are currently working with to get onboarded. There have been various challenges, some of it related to license management systems, some of it related to just getting enough priority in the state IT to get it worked on. But we continue to try to bring all the states on board. Hopefully for at least one or two states, when we change the EMS ID as the primary identifier and change the social to be not required, hopefully that will bring a couple on board fairly rapidly after that. Looking at my notes, that's all I have for today. Any questions from anyone?
Any questions for Ray?
Mr. Chair, no question. I just have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, and the comment is, one of the core aspects of the compact is the sharing of information, the sharing of data, the linking our systems. And I will note that through coordination with a number of non-compact states, in simple terms, the criminals of the profession who are falsifying records, and they're unfortunately out there, but they are now targeting non-compact states because they know that those states don't share information. So just for the public good and the public awareness, I would encourage everyone to do only primary source validation, never accept a PDF of any license or certification, because there are unfortunately bad actors out there who are hopping states, and we're currently tracking people across 4, 5, 6 states, and they are now avoiding compact states because they know that we share that information. So as a public service announcement, only use primary source, only go direct to state websites and the National Registry website or the compact website, and never accept paper documentation.
Thank you.
And yes, sir, we do have meeting minutes that's available.
Okay, and I found them on the website. So moving on to next, to the old business, we met June 2024 in Pittsburgh, and we have proposed meeting summary there from June 5th. I'll recognize Secretary House for any comments that he has with that.
The essence of being short, no, those are out there. I have no comments other than what was presented, and a thank you to Donnie for coordinating the development of that on a very quick notice. So
thank you. Any corrections or additions anyone would like to add to the proposed meeting summary? Entertain. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just for clarity of the record, we did meet in Pittsburgh, but then we had a rulemaking meeting on June 5th.
Oh,
and that meeting is a limited agenda, and that was the last meeting that we had.
Okay, my apologies. Yes, thank you for the correction on that. So we have the June 5th proposed meeting minutes. Is there a motion to accept that? Or I should say, not necessarily meeting minutes, but a meeting summary Is there a motion to accept that and publish that?
It's Commissioner House. I'll make the motion to accept them as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner House.
Commissioner Gray, I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray with the second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 There any opposed to the meeting summary? Any abstentions to the meeting summary? Okay, we will show that as accepted and we will get that published on the website. The next items of business are new business, and we'll move on. And the first one is a code of conduct. Recognize Donnie for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So we had the Code of Conduct Work Group chaired by Commissioner Johnson of Georgia, who did a great job with that. And what we have is a position paper discussing a code of conduct. And so this has been worked through a collaborative process, but essentially the legal authority of the compact and the commission is on the interstate practice of EMS. So this would be a privilege to practice code of conduct, meaning that anyone that is utilizing their EMS compact's privilege to practice in another state, we would recognize this as the professional ethics and the code of conduct expected of those individuals. We do have a recommendation from that committee to refer this over to the Bylaws and Rules Committee. And the Bylaws and Rules Committee has already considered an incorporation by reference into a rule draft for February to be considered. What you have in front of us is what I would consider, the basic ethics of working in EMS. So you will see that defined here is, as an EMS practitioner, I will have professionalism. I will treat patients and coworkers with respect. I will advocate for patients. Very common, what we would all consider as the baseline standard. And then furthermore, it just outlines that it's their responsibility to understand the concepts of jurisprudence. And that is, what are the laws, the rules, the regulations in the state that I'm working in? So the recommendation is for the full commission to adopt this as an official position paper. And then the next step would be for the Rules and Administrative Rule and Bylaw Committee to figure out how to best incorporate this. And then the next aspect of this is I anticipate that we may reconvene and create either a model for all states to consider to incorporate into their own administrative rule, and or even create a model administrative rule that states could consider adopting on their own that would govern EMS practice in their individual states. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions on this, and certainly we have a number of commissioners that participated in this process. I think this is a good step forward for the profession, and it originates, by the way, out of an administrative case that I led as a state director, where we had a problem when we tried to say a particular conduct was unprofessional. And the administrative law judge actually asked for us to provide where professionalism in EMS was actually defined. And we realized that it was underdefined. So this is a step forward in that. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And this was presented to the exec committee, and our recommendation was twofold. One, to send it to the bylaws committee for consideration of rules or bylaws. But number two was to bring it to the full commission as the position paper. We feel it is appropriate for adoption, and that is why we are presenting it today. Is there any questions for Donnie and the group? I applaud them for the effort. They spent a lot of time on this, but entertain questions, concerns anyone has.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe from Texas. I don't have any concerns or questions, more of a comment. And
yes.
I can tell you that we're seriously looking at it here instead of putting it in role, just putting it as a part of the initial application and the role application. When you have to go in and fill out an application for initial and renewal, that you read it and acknowledge it at that time. And so it would be updated there at, as I said, at initial and then when you renewal. We modified a little bit of this language to make it set for our state, but I think it's a great thing to have. And I know we're all wrestling with dealing with some of the aftermaths of all the disasters and stuff that's been going on and the EMS has been dealing with the lack of professionalism in the industry. So I think this will take us back to where, hopefully take us back to where we need to go. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I would entertain a motion to accept this as a position paper on the code of conduct.
So moved, Commissioner Vandeloon.
Commissioner Vandeloon, the motion.
Commissioner Gray, Alabama second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray with the second. Any further discussions, comments, clarifications?
Commissioner Bateman, has his hand up.
Yes, Commissioner Bateman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make a note that right there below the title, the date, October 16th, 2034, wondering if that should be revised. Thank you.
You know,
Before we memorialize it.
We'll see how many of us are here for 2034 then.
I can tell you I will not be.
Okay, I guess for clarity of record, will both of you accept that as a modification for the position paper? Yes, from Vandeloon. And Commissioner Gray, will you accept that as a modification for the date?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I couldn't find the mute button.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? We will consider it adopted as position paper. Thank you to the committee for their strong work there. Thank you, Donnie, for your background and work on pushing that through as well. We look forward to the updates on the rulemaking. Next item we have is Donnie is good at pushing the agenda and make sure that we keep current and we keep expanding. And he had approached Wayne and I meet weekly, and he had approached us, and then we went to the executive committee and had the support there. And the question was whether we should have advisory committees to the compact from, obviously this is the commission itself is the main body that controls the authority, but we can accept advisory from a couple of groups. And so I will recognize Donnie for his explanation and request.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So as the compact continues to grow, and as you heard during the database report, we currently have over 275,000 EMS clinicians in the database. We have somewhere between 325 and 400,000 EMS clinicians in the United States with a privilege to practice. That is very significant. Those clinicians are spanning 24 states and literally thousands of employers across those states. So the model legislation, which has been enacted as state statute in 24 states, under section 10.11, states that the commission is authorized to appoint committees, including advisory committees. And then it goes on to expand out whom that could be. I believe that we now, 10 years after the model legislation was first put out, we are at a time where we would benefit from 2 advisory committees. And I just want to provide a bit of clarification. I know that in some of our states, we have advisory committees that have very significant legislative power. And some of those committees operate as boards or commissions. I just want to clarify that what I'm recommending is in the true plain English version of advisory, and that is advisory only. They would not have the authority to create or approve rule or administrative authority, but really to advise and serve as a means of exchanging information. And therefore, I'm recommending the creation of two. I'll note the first one, then Mr. Chair, I'll take a pause before the second one. So the first one is a true stakeholder advisory committee. And this would be for non-governmental organizations and stakeholders in EMS. I've worked up a list here of what I would friendly consider common list. I saw a list just a few days ago that identified nearly 60 stakeholder organizations for EMS. My intent is not to not have any representation from any group. And I'm certainly open to expanding this for any that would be out there. But as a minimum, I would recommend that we reach out to the following organizations and ask for an official representative that would attend meetings. I think that this should meet at least 2 times annually, more if needed. And this would provide really a very dedicated forum for working with employers, stakeholders, organizations on how the EMS Compact is working, areas that we need to address, and how we can better educate and work with the community. So with that, I recommend that the commission formally create a stakeholder advisory committee. Mr. Chair, to you.
Quick question, follow-up. I believe I asked the same question for the exec committee. The number of these organizations are represented here today, but they were also involved with the formation of the compact and the replica language. Is that correct as well?
That's correct. In fact, many of these were part of either the drafting team or part of the advisory team that worked on creating the compact itself.
Thank you. Any questions or comments anyone has on the recommendation of a stakeholder advisory committee? Let's go ahead. I think they're related enough. Let's go ahead and proceed on to the next one.
So the next one is actually a federal advisory committee. And as a government body ourselves, and again, many of you have heard me say, the commission, you, are the highest government regulatory agency in the United States for the practice of EMS. As we know, there is no federal EMS office, and compact law being that of a super state, you are the highest office of EMS in the United States with regulatory authority over EMS personnel. And you know, I do a lot of time collaborating with our other federal partners. However, I do believe it's important for us to have a focused group of a federal advisory committee of our federal partners that we interact with. I do provide individual updates to all of these organizations. I do attend meetings that they schedule. I do provide updates at FICOMs, but you know, those are usually very narrow updates. I do believe that understanding how federal EMS and how the interstate practice of EMS overlaps with each one of these, it would probably assist us in having some dedicated time, 1 to 2 times a year, for the federal officials to also figure out how we can better collaborate and coordinate the interstate practice of EMS.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the recommendation of federal advisory? Recognize Commissioner Smeater.
Thank you. I love the idea. It makes a whole lot of sense. The only thing I would recommend is in the first group, Donnie, that you were showing, and I don't know if we'll get anybody or not, but I think we should invite right to the Speaker of the House and the Senate at the federal level and ask for a representative to see if they'd be willing to sit in on this committee. And these are all state agencies, are all federal agencies here. I get that. But I'm thinking of a regular senator and a regular congressman on the other group, on the first group of advisories.
I would say, thank you, Commissioner Snyder, great idea. I think that matches one of my comments to the exec committee. I said, I'm curious what participation we can get, because Donnie has worked and myself as well, try to build strong relationships with a lot of these, and I think it'll be interesting. So absolutely, why not invite them? I mean, the worst thing to happen, they say yes, and then we have better visibility on that federal level. Commissioner Bailey.
Yeah, just a question. The meetings that you're referring to, would they be virtual meetings or would they be in person, held in conjunction with like national conferences?
Good question. I don't think we had advanced that far. I suspect there will always be a virtual component due to the nature of the size of them. But yeah, tying them into, because frankly, you know, like the Joint National Leadership Forum usually meets with those national levels. Donnie, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say I don't think we got that far yet, Commissioner Bailey, but that's a great question. I think if there were national meetings that were taking place that we could coordinate with that wouldn't overburden people's schedules, that would be wonderful, and we'd be open to it. But definitely a virtual option would definitely be a primary option on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other questions or comments? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I think, you know, I would say the intent of both of these is not to merely add another meeting or to replace any work that's already going on. But I do think that because we do have such a large span of authority and responsibility, having some dedicated time just to seek feedback on the compact would be good. And that would be one of the purposes of these two. And it may be some of the same people that we see. I recognize when I present to FICOMs on the federal side, it's all the same people, but the purpose is different for that meeting than what this would be.
Thank you. I am open to any motions on the creation of both of these, either or both of these as advisory committees.
Commissioner Bailey, I'll make the motion.
Go right ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Bailey first. I'm sorry, Commissioner Smeater with the second.
Yes.
Oh. Any further comments or questions or discussion on the motion to create both advisory committees?
Mr. Chair, to clarify the record, would that motion be to include the addition by Commissioner Smeater, or as noted here? And I will note the wording here is at minimum, so I believe this would allow the chair to actually determine the membership. Is there any discussion around inviting the Speaker of the House and Senate?
And I would go back to Commissioner Bailey that made the motion. I guess in my mind, I was picturing this as a template, but they were more approving a concept rather than like a written rule or otherwise. Commissioner Bailey.
Yes, I think the list should be open, but it should include the Speaker of the House and a congressional representative as well. The invitation.
Commissioner Smeater, and you in agreement with that?
100%.
Thank you. Any further questions, clarifications, or comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. And any abstentions? Okay, we will show that as approved, and Donnie will work with the executive staff, and we'll keep you updated as we form those when the meetings are. And of course, if you're a member of the either of the stakeholders or the national government, then we will certainly be reaching out with more information. We value the input of everyone. We value the input of all the commissioners that are on here, but that'll be great to have an advisory committee that can indicate how our performance is impacting our interactions with them. Moving on to the last new business item, we are at elections. We had elections when we hired Donnie, and we had some shuffling of officers, and I believe all three of us came in for chairperson, treasurer, and member at large. And our elections are traditionally going to occur at the Q4 meeting, and which is the virtual one. And so with that, I task our secretary, Commissioner House, with chairing the nominations committee, and I will ask him for a report on the election of officers.
Thank you again very much, Mr. Chair. So I was running the nomination committee, did reach out to the three current sitting folks within that position who all expressed an interest to continue in that role. We did open this up, mentioned it at our annual meeting. There was an email that went out. I have received no further nominations, so we have 3 names listed in there. Of course, with the meeting itself here, we'll also open up the floor for nominations at some point, but that's the report from the nominations committee. I have the 3 incumbents listed.
Thank you. Appreciate that report, and thank you for my fellow incumbents for being willing to serve again. But we do want to open the floor to anyone that is interested, and due to the fact that I am chairperson and it's up for election, I'd ask Commissioner House if he would chair that person. So I will recognize him for election of the chairperson position.
Absolutely. So for election of the chairperson, we do have 1 nomination currently, which is Commissioner Kenny. Are there any other nominations from the floor?
Make a motion to close the nominations.
Second.
I second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Nominations are closed. I have a single name on there, so. All right, somebody that's a whole lot better at Robert's rules than I gets to go from there. But
You can cast
Commissioner-
Yep, go ahead.
Commissioner Gray from Alabama. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint the nominating committee's recommendations by motion of acclamation.
This is Mark from Utah, second.
all right, I have a first by. Sorry, I forgot that I was still thinking that. So motion by Commissioner Gray for myself to cast a unanimous ballot and motion of acclamation there of a second by Mark. Any further discussion?
To clarify, was that for all 3 positions then?
I did make the motion that for all 3 positions.
Okay, thank you.
So again, somebody that's better at Robert's rules than I. Do we need to open the floor for nominations for the other 2 positions prior to dealing with this motion?
Mr. Chair, if I might, there is a motion on the floor, so there has to be a disposition of that motion before another motion or open nominations could be entertained.
Correct.
So if the maker of the motion wants to rescind the motion and put a pin in it and allow you to open nominations from the floor, you could do that.
My apologies. Commissioner Gray from Alabama, I misspoke on that motion. I would like to rescind that motion and correct it by saying I moved for acclamation for the current chairperson position.
All right. Commissioner Herrera is still second.
I think I
second that. Thank you.
All right. So for the position of chairperson, we'll have a motion of acclamation. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none. Are there any opposed? Are there any that wish to abstain? We will consider the rest unanimous. Mr. Chair, I will hand this actually back over to you.
I wondered how quickly you would do that. Thank you for the affirmation. And we now have the treasurer position. And so we do have recommendation from the committee to reelect Brad Vandaloon as treasurer. I'll entertain any motions on that or a motion from the floor for that position.
I'll make a motion to close nominations. Joe from Texas.
Commissioner Smeeder from Texas, motion.
Second, Commissioner Martin from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Commissioner Martin from Pennsylvania. And the motion was to close nominations. All those in favor indicate by signifying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, so we have closed nominations from the floor. We have one nominee. So I'll entertain a motion to approve that nominee.
So moved, Commissioner Alabama.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Is there a second?
I'll
Commissioner
second.
Bailey, second.
I think I saw Commissioner Bailey first. Sorry, I was watching for my screen to light up. Also, Commissioner Bailey with the second, but thank you everyone for trying. We can try this route. Any objections to electing Brad Vandaloon as treasurer for a 2-year term? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to member at large. We had a recommendation of Aaron Kaler being re-elected, and that was the only nomination. We will accept any nominations from the floor or another motion.
Make a motion to close nominations. Schmieder from Texas.
Commissioner
Second,
Smeeder.
Alabama.
Second with Commissioner Gray from Alabama. Any objections to closing nominations? Any abstentions? Nominations are closed. I'll entertain a motion to elect Aaron Kaler to another 2-year term as member at large.
So moved,
House.
Commissioner Gray.
Commissioner Gray and Commissioner House, were you motioning? I saw yours come on.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. So we have motion and a second. Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, we will show them reelected. Thank you, everyone, for that election of officers. Although we didn't have contested elections, I think it's good. We have the amount of people involved, and we always welcome new faces if people are interested in the future. But I do appreciate the work of your executive committee. We have a strong executive committee, and I'm glad to see their willingness to continue to serve, and we will hopefully serve you well. But thank you for the affirmation today. Moving on to our government organization stakeholder partner updates. I could call on people. I see a number on here today. If you would like to give an update, and you please use the raise hand feature, and we'd love to give you a few minutes if you would like to do so. See, when I make you guys do the work, then. Susan, go ahead. Commissioner Bailey.
So I don't think Howard was available today, and so I'll just give a brief report for NAEMT. We're happy to report that we have 9 national associations that's agreed to join us for the NCSL conference next year in Boston, and we're looking forward to having a good turnout with educating the state legislators on what EMS is and what EMS does, and we're very happy to have the compact joining us in that endeavor.
Thank you. And thank you for that opportunity. When you guys presented that, I was glad that you had the foresight to do that, but also the NAEMT said, hey, we want everyone involved to better EMS. And that's a great opportunity for all of us.
Thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Other updates?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to use the opportunity, because this is our Q4 meeting, to actually recognize Commissioner Bailey. Commissioner Bailey is just finishing her, I believe, 2-year term as the president of the NAEMT. And in addition to all of her other roles that she has, I don't know how you do it, Susan. I don't know where you find time to do all that. But I'm just speaking as, if I may, in my personal capacity. Susan, I welcome your leadership, some of the changes you've ushered in, and the focus of where you've taken the NAMT. The NAMT's been very important to the origins of the EMS Compact, and your leadership there has been much appreciated as well. So I just wanted to recognize her, because I believe her successor will be taken over before our next official meeting of the commission here in February. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much. And Randy Strozak's on here, and he could tell you exactly how many days we have left. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Let me look. 76 days, 10 hours, 49 minutes, and 51 seconds. So I want to echo Donnie's comments about Susan. As AAA president, it is one of my most favorite people to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
will echo that on Susan, but we also appreciate working with you, Randy, and all the partner organizations that are on here. I see Dia on here. I see Dan on here, a bunch of organizations and our government partners. So thank you all. It's great that you're willing to participate and strengthen the compact.
Excellent.
Any further order of business? Okay, we will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Commissioner Gray.
Commissioner Gray, the motion. And I'll be unorthodox and I'll second it. And I will say we are going ahead and being adjourned. So thank you, everyone. Very productive meeting. Is a little bit slow to get everyone on, but we appreciate everyone's time. Thank you to Donnie for his hard work and preparation, all the people that are working on the scenes on this. We look forward to continuing our work. Thank you.